This week on Mailbag, we're joined by Joe from the Centre Bounce FanCast, and we discuss if Bice is still an option, take a look at players who may be affected by returning teammates, and of course, we answer all your questions. Hello and welcome to the Footy Mailbag. My name is Damo and here with me is Clarky.
Hello. I've been watching some TV shows, which has been nice.
This week we welcome our first in-season guest, Joe from Centre Bounce on YouTube and the FanCast AFL podcast. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Damo, Clarky, thank you so much for having me. You know how much I love talking to you guys. Clarky and I have this weird sort of energy that we just bounce off each other. Pretty sure last time we were going off crazy about gnomes and garden gnomes and stuff like that. Still haven't forgotten about that conversation because it is still to today the weirdest conversation I've had in the last 2 years, but I love it. So thanks so much for having me, guys.
It's great to have two pillars that vibrate at the same frequency that Damo gets to stand in the middle of and have his brain scrambled.
Anytime.
You two feel like, you know, you get those magnet things that like vibrate against each other that you buy from like the souvenir shops that like you throw against a wall or you juggle in your hands and they make that awful sound, but it's still like amazing because it's like, how is it doing that? It's science.
Yeah.
That's what you guys are like.
I think history will show that we will be studied by science but never truly understood and known for our awful sounds.
Very awful sounds. I'm not a singer by any stretch of the imagination. And if you're hearing me, it's all thanks to Damo's wonderful tech here that is controlling my voice. It's got some auto-tune going. But, don't ask me to sing anything.
So, Joe, how is your team tracking? How have you started the year?
Oh, my team is tracking horrifically. It seems to have been hit by a car midway through the trip up to Mount Everest and then was attacked by a wildebeest or something. I don't know what it was. Something with a lot of hooves. I don't know. So, yeah, but I lost 10,000 ranks this week, unfortunately. Currently ranked 25,000. I scored a measly 1864 on the weekend, courtesy of a Dane Zorko captaincy at 94, which is a little bit unfortunate. And also because I got sucked into Humphrey, his 64, as opposed to trading in Riley Bice, who almost doubled him. So, yeah, all in all, the team's going great.
It's funny, isn't it? Like, Joe, as our first in-season guest, I can probably ask you, as a creator, right? Like all three of us, we are content creators in the Supercoach space, and we also do AFL adjacent content. It's really proving this year that you can do everything possible. You can make objectively the correct moves and still then turn up to a week just to be like, oh, hang on. Wait, why am I being set on fire? Whoa, hang on. Stop pouring the gasoline on my team, please. That's very flammable. It's tough. It's tough out there.
Yeah, it is. It has been a tough start to the season. Still yet to have a positive start. I'm always one that starts behind and then trades his way up. I'd love for 1 year to actually have a decent start. But look, 25,000, it's not end of the world. And I think I've got clear direction with where my team has to go to make improvements. So long season, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I like considering it as giving people a head start.
Excellent.
All right, heading into round 5, gather round. All the teams are playing, so no more best 18. In fact, no more best 18 until round 12. So to use a phrase that I saw someone use on Sunday night, we're going to be seeing who has been swimming with their pants down. Clarky, what caught your eye in round 4?
What? Anyway, you know what? I'm going to leave that one with no. What caught my eye this week was my biggest thing that caught my eye this week. Full disclosure, I didn't watch a lot of football. I tuned out very quickly after watching Melbourne get pummeled by Geelong, and I had other engagements on, so I kind of only caught scores here and there. But what I did notice this week was it was a really great week for people who have been focusing, I think, on economy. Like, this is probably one of the first rounds that I had personally where I was like, okay, cool. I have made all these trades. None of them were reactionary. They weren't sidewaysing premiums that I was unhappy with, which are many in my team. I took a safe captaincy score, and I think it was kind of like it felt almost refreshing to have a bit of a reset week for me, where I was like, okay, cool. I've got all the right guys who made a bunch of cash. Like, even though, we spoke about the Marek versus Humphrey last week, and Humphrey didn't score as much as Marek, which is, once again, unpredictable, but, you make the decision with the information you have available. But Humphrey's still going to make a decent amount of money. He's still got quite a low break even, and the role is still there for him within that team. So that's still a positive, even with some injuries to Nathan O'Driscoll and Luke Jackson this week. It's kind of like I still looked at my team at the end of the week, and I scored a 20-54, right, which isn't fantastic, but it's good. Like, that's a good week for me. I jumped up like 30,000 ranks, and I was like, okay, cool. Holding fast and focusing on economy and playing the long game felt like it served me well finally.
Clarky, you say you didn't have a great week, but you outscored me, and you jumped 30k in ranking places. So you had a great week. Don't talk down about your team. To use Joe's terminology, my team looks like it's been trampled by a herd of elephants. So yes,
this is the thing, right? And we know that the rankings, because of the multitude of best 18s, they're actually not separated by a vast amount of points yet, right? Like, this is the week best 22, where we're going to start seeing who's swimming with their pants down. We're going to start seeing the separation, though, from the people who kind of already have those guys that they're locked into, or they got those selections right from week one and are focusing on economy and starting to just upgrade and upgrade as they go. And the people who are sort of going to be scrambling to play the long game and can end poorly, or the people who maybe were overly aggressive and have put themselves on the back foot now that we're going into best 22 for the better part of the next 6 weeks or so.
You would rather be swimming with your pants down than drowning fully clothed.
I think it depends on what's in the water.
Like, I'd rather be swimming with my pants down than drowning fully clothed, in my opinion. Yes, it's probably more dignified, but at least I live.
When they find me, don't ask questions.
What caught my eye this week was...
Yes, thanks, Joe, for moving us along.
Mate, I podcast too. All right, I know how run sheets work.
You've done this before.
Yes, I do this before. What caught my eye this week was sort of piggybacking off what you said, Clarky, about your boys. It's Melbourne's remarkable ability to give up points to defenders. Like, gee whiz, like Tom Stewart with a 118, Guthrie with a 114. Connor O'Sullivan with 103, DeConning with a 92. Like, you want to give up any more points to defenders, guys? Like, seriously?
We're all Simpsons coded, right? Like, we're all big on that. You know, when Krusty is watching the Globetrotters versus the Generals, and he's spinning the ball on his finger. Just take it. That's me watching Geelong play the kick mark game while Simon does nothing.
Yeah.
Simon continues to go, yes, I have them on the back foot.
Yes, good win around causes bad loss.
Yeah. Clarky's still omitting Simon's surname until Melbourne are...
boycotting.
Yeah.
He's boycotting the last name, which makes sense. But for all you Connor O'Sullivan owners out there, you guys are absolutely salivating. And for all of you Pryor and Reed owners, you're licking your lips because... you got some cash cows potentially coming up against a team that lets Connor O'Sullivan ton up. So let's get excited, boys.
What caught my eye? So during the week, Jason Horne-Francis had an interview with Channel 7 in Adelaide and said that he needed to take more responsibility. He needed to have a better game. He needed to, get his mindset right for game day. And, well, we saw what happens when he is at his tip-top best, and he ended up with a 153 turning up in the first half. So all those who held him got rewarded, and all those who didn't. I saw a lot of people saying this is why we don't trade premiums, and I don't know if Jason Horne-Francis has reached that premium status yet, but in the forward line, I think you just got to let some bad weeks just wash over you, because it's going to happen with the forward line. It's just the way the forward line works. So I really like that he came out and said that he didn't perform the way he's been wanting to, and now he's rewarded the Supercoach owners that held faith, and 153.
Stuff him. Where was this the week before, you flog? How dare you do this to me after I trade you out? I've had a bad year with trading people out and then them coming good. I traded out Will Ashcroft after round 2 because I saw that the back line needed some bolstering because the rookies looked to be quite bad at that point. So I had to drop a midfielder to bolster my back line, and Will Ashcroft was the worst performing at the time. And of course, the second I traded him out, he's gone 130 back-to-back weeks, and I held on to Finn Callahan. So yeah, stuff you, Horne-Francis. You're jump in an ice bath.
And then also rookies like Travalia, Trainer, Bice all come out of the woodwork. Trainer with 280 plus points in a row. So rookies are looking okay in defense all of a sudden as well.
Yeah, I got debated early on in the season and restructured the place where that shouldn't have needed restructuring. Alas, it is a little bit of bad luck. You can't predict these sorts of things. You know what I mean? Zach Reed, he's always so injury prone. All of a sudden, he pumps out an 80 as well before he went on his bye. So it's like, you just can't predict these sorts of things. A lot of it is luck, and well done to those who held on to him and kept the faith.
Can I mention one other thing that caught my eye? I don't know if you guys saw it, but Jack Higgins being iconic and continuing to be iconic. Jesse, co-host of The Falcon, has had a love for Jack Higgins for a long time now, and I'm starting to understand it when he was interviewed about Gather Round and was just like, nah, Adelaide's kind of shit. I'm going to hold up in the hotel room playing COD with the boys. Iconic. You know what? You have a fan. You have a new fan, Jack Higgins. I'm on board. I'm so behind you.
It reminded me of when, what's his face? Sicily was asked the question about would he move to Tasmania, and he's like, oh no, this place is too boring. I wouldn't move here. There's nothing to do here. And he'd just become the Hawthorn captain, and it's like, mate, your team is sponsored by Tassie. You can't come out here just completely calling the place a shithole after you've taken their money, mate. That's just not how business works.
No. They've already been paid, so he can say whatever he wants.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Take it back? They probably turn around and go, yeah, no, fair play. That's why we're building the stadium.
They're unethical at the Hawks. Absolutely unethical. The unsociable Hawks. They'll talk shit about you after taking their money. They'll go and try and start scouting out opposition team captains and forcing them to then be thrown under the bus. The Hawks are despicable, aren't they?
It's very funny that Hawthorn is a catalyst for controversy inadvertently.
Yeah.
Even when I knew it was West Coast, it was Hawthorn.
Exactly. And everyone's talking about Oscar Allen. No one's talking about Sam Mitchell or Hawthorn. Seriously, come on. He's part of the problem. You can't just heap it all on Oscar Allen.
I wouldn't have picked West Coast to be the first club in the modern era to have a full-on revolt. I'm talking Les Mis. I'm seeing Oscar Allen raising the flag of a burnt-out Hungry Jacks.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Some rookies on the bubble this week that might enter people's trade calculations. Toby Travalia is probably the most important one that people will look at. Clay Hall is another one. We've just been told that Tim Kelly's going to be dropped, so his job security goes through the roof. Isaiah Dudley, Will McLaughlin, and Jed Welter are the other guys that people may look at, but probably don't have the best scoring potential or job security. But last week, Riley Bice was on the bye. He was only traded in by about 26% of coaches. He is now at just under 204k, still has a break even of minus 98. So for the guys that didn't get, or gals, guys or gals, who didn't get Riley Bice, is it still worth paying 204k?
100%, right? Like, it's with a minus 90 break even, you kind of have to just lament that you missed the first rise, but minus 90, like, that's, if it was like, I think the threshold for me would have been like anything more than maybe about a negative 30 break even is probably like, okay, no, the juice is well worth the squeeze here, because 124 on top of, he was averaging what, about 50 or 60 before that, maybe even a little bit bigger.
I paid 270,000 for Bailey Humphrey. You think I wouldn't pay 203,000 for Riley Bice?
Yeah, legit,
Like,
right?
seriously.
Like, Damo, do you feel the same?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't trade him in last week because I didn't like some comments that Dean Cox said. It just made me think that his job security just wasn't great. But after seeing him against North Melbourne, I don't know how they can ever drop him now. So he only needs to score in the mid 60s to make another 75k, and at that stage, his break even's probably still going to be in the negatives, and he could get up to 450k before we even have to think about moving him. And if he gets to 450k, maybe he's averaging enough that we don't have to move him at all, and he can just stay at stay on our defense bench and be excellent cover for the rest of the season. So yeah, 100%. You trade him in at 204k.
Being someone who didn't watch this game, where did this scoring really come from? Was he playing as a defender? Is there any flow-on effect that's affecting, say, like a Matty Roberts for owners, or is there, at the one or two keeper league Lewis Melican owners maybe?
Lewis Melican is injured, so
I know, Damo. He's in my keeper league. It's a joke. Why you gotta hurt me like that? You gotta hurt me for real.
So Matt Roberts probably did have to adjust, and he did score a lot of his points in the second half. But Riley Bice, Matt Roberts, and to a lesser extent Nick Blakey, I know that he is in some people's teams, they all basically just bounced off each other for the whole game. And Riley Bice's score was probably propped up by the fact that he went at something like 90% disposal efficiency with 23 effective kicks, and all of his kicks were long kicks, and they are a honeypot for points in Supercoach. So he prefers to kick the ball. He hits his targets. He racks it up across halfback. That is Supercoach gold, and in a rookie, that is fantastic.
And he pushed up the ground, and he had 7 kicks inside 50, and all 7 of them found the mark, which meant 7 direct score assists as well, which, as we know, also gives you extra bonus points with the secret sauce that is Supercoach scoring. And as I completely agree with you, Damo, I also did not pick him in because there were some comments coming out from Dean Cox, but then you hear him after the game and it's like, oh, some people have a license, people have a license to play. It's like, where were these comments before the game? Are you telling me now that this guy has got license to do whatever he wants with the ball? That would have entirely changed my perspective on his job security and his scoring power beforehand, rather than telling me after the fact he drops a 124 on my head and then is like, oh, he's got license. Well, if that's 124 without license, imagine if he did have a license. He'd be the bloody King of England next thing you know. So pissed off, Coxie. You pissed me off, mate, this week. I'm very disappointed. But yes, trade in him. Trade in the guy. He's good.
Joe's fired up this week, Damo. I did bring in Bice this week for Patton, so it kind of worked out for me. But just so I'm understanding from you two, you both feel screwed by Cox?
Cox screwed me. He screwed me. It screwed me. And I was making this joke. I don't know if it's too crass or whatnot, but I always thought it was pretty funny that no reporter had the gumshot to try and say Big Cox lands head job when Dean Cox became head coach of the Swans.
Get that out of here.
I'm sure there was a local newspaper that ran with that. I'm sure there was a local newspaper that ran with that somewhere.
There's a small town somewhere where a man is lauded as the king of comedy.
Thank you.
In that same game, Harry Sheezel went back to halfback. He was the Seagull again, ended with a 144. George Wardlaw also returned to the VFL and had a very solid game for North Melbourne's VFL side. It kind of puts a lot of players in that North midfield. Do we think that Sheezel will remain at halfback? Do we think that this is going to be a long-term position? Do you think the midfield experiment is over?
Good question.
I think no. So either way, I think from a Supercoach perspective, you're not dropping Sheezel if you own him. If anything, it's probably the time that you maybe look into it. I would be more concerned about the other smaller players getting removed from those midfield rotations and that kind of thing to fit Sheezel in. I think moving him to halfback probably has many flow-on effects for Sheezel, but Wardlaw coming in probably is better for him as a mid than it being bad. Does that make any sense? I just think Wardlaw is somebody who has enough talent to garner further attention from the opposition, right? So there's less pressure on Sheezel to be, a spearhead alongside LDU, alongside, whoever else, like Tom Powell's, those guys, by sort of assigning their core group. I think Sheezel probably would benefit a little bit more from less attention if he were to flow into the mid. And if he does play a bit of a mixture of halfback and mid, that's net positive still. Like he's not averaging terribly even as a mid. So I don't think there's any reason that we should be concerned about what his role is. I think it's more about whether you buy now or buy later.
I mean, a lot of people traded Harry Sheezel out after back-to-back 80s, and like Horn Francis, he pretty much showed owners why you don't trade out premiums, guys that you've paid up for, and there's now people looking to trade back in Harry Sheezel, and I hate using two trades on one player. So if you've traded him out, I think he's gone. But manage your team however you want. I honestly think that his midfield time probably is still going to be there. He's just going to be, if they feel like he's struggling, if they feel like he's getting too much attention, if he's not impacting the game, that's when he might move to the half-back line, might get a few touches, might get his confidence back up, something to just get him back in the game. And I think North Melbourne are in the stage of their development where they need to find secondary roles for players when the game's not going their way. And I think obviously Sheezel started at halfback and has moved into the midfield, has graduated into the midfield a bit, but they still need to find places where they can move players around to just give them that something extra when the game's not going their way. And so I think Sheezel's still going to be a midfielder primarily, but if North are getting smacked at any point, then they need to be able to swing the magnets around and have players play in roles where they've already had experience and that they're comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, we can say that he's had at the start of the season some significant time playing forward as well. So, I mean, this guy, he's capable enough to play all over the place, but I think North Melbourne acknowledged that at this point in time, unlike a St Kilda, which really plays as a sum of its parts, this point where North Melbourne is at, it's still a little bit reliant on individuals like being in top form to help carry the team a little bit, like the LDUs of the world and the Sheezels and the Sherrys and things like that. It's not really a systematic juggernaut just yet, we understand that, and North Melbourne understands what they're at as well. So yeah, they're going to do what's best by their individual players, by their stars, to keep them in good form, and that's the whole reason why they sent him to the back line, to find his feet. So I don't anticipate he'll stay there, but I think he'll spend enough time there that, that DPP swing will certainly be very helpful, as well as the fact that he's going to be a decent scorer for us.
Joe, do you think this is the time to buy?
Is this the time to do what, sorry?
To buy?
To buy the Sheez. What's his break even? 111. He's playing at Barossa Park, which is a pretty big ground, if I recall, which means that there's plenty of space for the distributors to break lines and hit targets and things like that. So I can see Sheezel performing really well this week. I've actually got him as my vice captain. So at 573, you could have, with a 111 break even, I think he beats that. I reckon, yeah, trade him in.
I think the best thing about the break even being at 111, even if he does go higher than that, and Joe, for your sake, I hope he does, but his price won't move too far from where it is if you want to have a second look.
It won't. What's his run like to come? He's got the Gold Coast this week, and he's got Carlton next week, who really love kicking behinds. And then he's got Port at Adelaide Oval, then plays against the Bombers, and we give up a lot of points to half-backs. And then they play Brisbane at Ninja Stadium.
That is the old Blundstone Arena.
It's like, who the fish is Ninja Stadium? Someone cutting up onions. It's the Ninjas. Like, they come up with some interesting names, I swear, for these old Blundstone Arena. But I still think he'll be top 6 to 8. You know, and if you're getting him at 573K, that's definitely better value than starting with him at 635. You know, you're getting him at a $62,000 discount, which is pretty good.
I assume that we all own Tom De Koning.
No.
Yes.
You don't own Tom De Koning?
No, I don't have long-term faith in his ability to be a top ruckman. I put my eggs in the Sherry basket, which so far is turning out to be neutral. They're both about the same.
All right, Joe. So you own Tom De Koning. I own Tom De Koning. Mark Pittonet he's a test on their injury list. How quickly should we react to moving Tom De Koning when Pittonet returns to that senior side?
I think fairly quickly, to be honest. And at the same time, keeping one eye on big Harry Mackay. As soon as Harry Mackay looks to be coming back into the team, then I think Pittonet comes back out again. So I think
With
it's all
Mackay
entirely
maybe available
dependent
this
on
week.
Big H.
If that helps at all, I believe he may be available this week.
There you go. So I think Big H is a big factor, and if he comes back and is playing well and in good form, they might just be too big. The ball just bounces out of their forward line way too easily. And if they're playing with the extra ruckman and big Harry Mackay as well, then they're putting all of their eggs in that basket, which can be pretty hit or miss. So it's just not right for them structurally if they're playing too tall with that many players. So, yeah, fingers crossed Harry Mackay can come in and do a good job for us, and Pitto can go back to the VFL.
I think if Harry Mackay is available, then Pittonet doesn't come in. But if Mackay decides that he needs a few more weeks to get his head right, whatever's going on there,
his misses,
then I think Mark Pittonet comes in, and then it's danger for Tom De Koning.
I didn't anticipate him to be a keeper for the year anyway. I sort of wanted to start him because of the good run, because of his solo rucking, and obviously because we knew Pittonet was out with the calf. My intention, for the most part, I was pretty confident at the start of the season, starting with TDK and then flipping him to Sherry when Sherry's run opens up, because the back half of the season for Sherry is really Mickey Mouse. Almost all of it is just a green, all systems go. So my intention was from the start that Pittonet was going to come in and impact TDK, and it's happening pretty soon, but hopefully not. I'd rather not waste a trade on the sideways.
All right, let's go through some injuries and suspensions now. Dan Houston is suspended for 2 weeks after a high bump. He will return for Anzac
Just come
Day.
back from being suspended?
For pretty much the same thing as well.
Yeah, Collingwood ruined him.
Hayden Young and Sean Darcy played in the Waffle on the weekend, set to return to face Richmond in Gather Round. Luke Jackson will be missing for 2 to 3 weeks, and O'Driscoll is listed as 4 to 6 weeks after damaging his ankle. Darcy Parish is set to play VFL on the weekend. Elijah Sardis is available for selection, and Jai Caldwell is out for 4 weeks with a hamstring strain. James Warple is a test for Hawthorn, while Will Day is out for 3 to 4 months
Huge.
with a stress fracture in his foot. That's come out of nowhere. That first spot in our traffic lights really did do a number on him.
Yeah, the curse of Ron.
Xavier Lindsay is a test for Melbourne. Clarkey, does he come straight back in?
Oh, for sure.
Excellent. Jack Steele is a test for the GWS clash as well.
You know who else? Sorry, this is unrelated, but this is me speculating. So big asterisk on this, but Tom Fullerton kicked like 5 goals for Casey. And Jesus fucking Christ, Melbourne need a forward. So if he doesn't get a game this week or in the coming weeks, he may never. However, he's cheap. If he comes in and clunks a few marks, kicks a few goals, he could hold for a pretty decent amount of time as Melbourne are literally begging to score some points. For the love of God, guys, you're killing me.
Yeah.
You are killing me every week. I die a little more.
Also, coming off injury that is confirmed to be playing this week is Mitch Nevitt.
Yeah.
Now, Mitch Nevitt isn't on the bubble because he has had a little mini price rise already of 30K. He's still at 181, which is less than some of these higher priced rookies like the Lindsays and the Sardises that we've started. We know we've seen Mitch play. Do we think that Mitch Nevitt could be a play this week to trade in as well?
Am I correct in, did I make this up that he was held out of the team because of illness / minor injury? That was the reason.
So, last week they withdrew him because he had plantar fasciitis or whatever, or something.
Yep.
Yeah, correct. And he was subbed off the week before.
Yeah.
He was the sub the week before. He came on midway through the last quarter and scored 20 points.
Yeah, and I think Nevitt is somebody who I think should be earmarked as, probably should be in Geelong's best 22, in my opinion. I think as a footballer, I really like Nevitt, and he's so young and he's got that raw talent. So I think it was probably, if he was the sub, they probably already knew, knowing Chris Scott, there's a reason behind that, and they probably knew it was because he wouldn't be able to commit to a whole game and then having a week off. It's kind of, the timing works out for me to build a narrative that he's back, he's fit, he's green tick, systems go. If you need to get rid of like a Finn O'Sullivan or an O'Driscoll, why not go for a guy who seemingly should be best 22? Sorry, I said best 18 out of habit, but seemingly best 22, right? Like that's where my mind goes, but I don't know if either of you feel differently.
I don't know if I can trust Geelong's injury reporting or even the team that they name on a Thursday night. I can't trust Chris Scott. I can't trust any of it. I have Bailey Smith in my team. He is the only Geelong player in my team. I didn't get Connor O'Sullivan because I don't trust Chris Scott with anything. I think, like, they bring out the injury report. AFL has said you have to be accurate with timelines. They fucking aren't. And then they'll name a team, and then we'll make like 7 late changes. So yeah, I'm not going there again. I traded him out. He's gone. He became Christian Moraes, who I don't even know if he's going to keep his spot this week. But anyway, I feel much better having Christian Moraes than an extra Geelong player in my seed.
Fair enough.
Damo, how do you feel about Brad Scott? I want to see if this is like a family thing or...
Brad Scott's higher on the, if there was a ladder and like the most trusted coach was at the top and the least trusted coach was at the bottom, Brad Scott's higher than Chris Scott, but they're probably both in the bottom 6.
It's very funny because just to let you guys an insight of the mind of a man who has a 6-month-old and is very tired. In my head, you're standing in a labyrinth. There's a doorway in front of you. There are 2 coaches, Chris Scott and Brad Scott. Now, one speaks only in truths, and the other tells only lies. And Damo, I think you have solved it. You are relatively confident you have solved this riddle.
I have solved it. Don't even question it. I have solved it. All right, let's get to some questions.
Hey.
Just a reminder, please submit questions before 8 p.m. Melbourne time on a Wednesday, because otherwise we won't get to it that week. You can also send us voice memos now if you want. We didn't get any last week, so hopefully we get some soon. The link on our website to that is next to our question form link. First question comes from Paul. Getting Bice, but means I can't afford Travalia, so getting Clay Hall instead. Do I need Travalia, or is Bice more important?
Bice, baby.
Bice, you get it's a 30k difference. Travalia's break even is minus 32, so I think Bice. I think Bice is more important, and with West Coast dropping Tim Kelly, or reportedly dropping Tim Kelly, Clay Hall's, I don't know if job security goes through the roof, but his scoring potential definitely rises.
I agree.
So yeah, get Bice, get Clay Hall. Don't worry about Travalia if you can't afford him. You're doing well with those trades, mate.
Yep.
Good job, Paul.
Next question comes from Benji. Thoughts on Daniel Rioli as a serious point of difference?
I'll say
He really is.
I certainly think it's a move. It's one really good game from a player who we know is really good, but is it an anomaly? The serious question that you need to be asking yourself, Benji, is what you're expecting from Daniel Rioli. And would you be willing to pay that? Do you genuinely have confidence, or are you seeing big number now, but maybe little number next week, or maybe big number next week? But there's no telling, because there's not really enough data of his time with Gold Coast, I think, to sort of go, yes, this is a guy that I can back in all season long, or is this a guy that you can back in for 6 weeks, right? In which case you need to plan ahead of what that looks like. So I think, as annoying as it is to say, the answer comes down to what's your expectations versus the amount and the trades you're willing to outlie to that.
So he's 519k, good price. Scored 91 against West Coast, scored 90 against Melbourne, and then had a massive spike game against the Crows with a 163. I think those 91s and those 90s, those low 90s scores is probably the output that we're going to see more often from Daniel Rioli, especially considering their backline also has John Noble and all these other 700 halfbacks that can rebound the ball for them. So I think, 519k is a good price. And his break even now is 59, and he's got North and then Richmond.
And we saw what Bice did to North.
Yeah, so does Daniel Rioli get a massive jump and get you to maybe like a Dane Zorko type that you're trying to bridge the gap to? But like Clarkey says, it depends on what you want him for. Do you see him as a keeper? Do you see him as a stepping stone? It's probably too expensive to be a stepping stone.
I was going to say, are we really paying 520 for a guy to get to Dane Zorko and also boo Dane Zorko? When 10k more would get you Max Holmes, right?
Yeah, Max Holmes is copping tags in the midfield every week. I can understand, like, I think if you're picking Rioli, you're definitely picking him as a keeper. And those two 90 scores came off the back of smashings, like Gold Coast smashed West Coast, and then they smashed Melbourne. So obviously the supply probably wasn't there as much as in a tight contest against the Crows. But the weird thing as well for me is that he only has had one kick-in to this point. So he's not the kick-in man. It kind of frightens me what happens if he does become kick-in man, if this is the type of scoring that he can give you without those free points. So I think there's certainly enough meat on the bone, especially if you think there's going to be some tighter matchups. He has had the interrupted preseason, which might also help to explain why he started the season a bit slower. And it's kind of crazy to consider two 90s at the start of the season as a slow start. I honestly think there's enough meat on the bone to justify this selection, crazily enough. Yes, there's a few chefs in the kitchen. You're not going to expect a 160 every single week. There might be games where Noble pops off. But I think if you really are trying to go for a pod that no one's going to have and you want to have fun screaming out for Rioli all the time, I mean, there's certainly worse picks out there, I think.
Joe, hold that thought because the next question, the real Razor Ray is what they've said their name is. First decent start in years. Should I start upgrade season this week? Ranked around the top 500. Want to be aggressive. Thinking O'Driscoll and SDK out. Dan Rioli and Clay Hall in. So that 163 has put him on not a lot of people. This is 2 people on a few people's radars.
That's like 20% of our audience.
That's 2 more than last week, Damo. You can't, it starts as avalanches don't start big. They start with tiny little snowballs that eventually grow.
You know what? The ranch at one point, Damo, was just us in a backyard with a chicken coop full of mail. And now look at us. Paddocks of mail every week. Free range, cruelty free. We're really living it. Now, gentlemen, we've talked about Daniel Rioli and what the do's and don'ts. I would, however, like to suggest someone who I think is an equivalent option that should be considered. Coming off a bye, 3 scores including 3 tons, Karl Amon, the set play man himself.
You mentioned him after round 1. No, you mentioned him after round 2.
He has...
I mentioned him last year.
100 against Sydney, 122 against Essendon, 106 against Carlton, and a 79 against GWS. But we know that GWS game at UTAS was cooked by weather.
Yes.
In his upcoming run, comes up against Port and Adelaide Oval, Geelong at the G, West Coast at Marvel, Richmond at the G, Melbourne at the G, and Gold Coast at TIO. Like, if we're talking favourable runs for a guy who is probably at Port we were talking he was like a 90s average guy. So far, he's probably, you'd say, with the outlier of that weather affected GWS game, he's averaging 100. That 79 easily turns into a 101, a 102, right? Real point of difference? Around the same price? Favourable fixture.
Takes kick-ins.
And the set play, man. The set play is good vibes.
It was. Even though it was against my boys, it still was good vibes.
I will probably say one thing against him is his high break even, which is a 125. However, if he gets slightly cheaper after you buy him, but he's still scoring hundreds, are you really worried about the price if you're getting the scores? Hasn't had a spike game is probably the big major difference.
Well, the question is, who's taking points of him in the back line?
Josh Weddle.
Exactly. He's good, Josh Weddle.
James Sicily, sometimes.
Who goes forward other times?
Are we just naming Hawthorn defenders now? Josh
Battle. No, I prefer Rioli personally.
Okay, that's fair.
I think Rioli is a very good player.
I think the beauty of Karl Amon is he remains an option for pretty much the entire year because until he has that spike game, his price is going to go up and down around that 500k mark, and he's always going to be an option. But Daniel Rioli, his break even has come all the way down now, and he could max out at 600k if he gets the right run. So I know that when you trade these guys in, you don't really want them for cash generation. But if for whatever reason you did need to move them on, there's going to be other guys around that price that you can move him to. Whereas Karl Amon, it's a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, exactly. And Rioli averaged like 93 last year, having been he was basically checked out as well. Like he knew he was gone. He knew he was going to go to Gold Coast. He was going to join Dimmer halfway through the year last year, and he still, farted out a 93 average. He's started slow this year with an interrupted preseason in 2 smashings where the ball really didn't go his way and still scored 90 plus in both of those games. And then when the whips were cracking in what was a very tight last quarter against the Crows, he was involved. And I like picking people who are, and part of the benefit, I suppose, to Carl Amon as well, is I think there are two types of people, two types of players. There are the win more players, and then there are the key players that are actually part of the system, and they're the ones who really get going. And then there's the periphery, the win more players get on board to help out and play their bit. Humphrey is, in my opinion, one of those win more type of players. He benefits from the team's success. The team's doing well, and he sort of gets piggybacked along the ride. I think Amon and Rioli now are both more of those integral players in the team, part of the system, part of the set plays, part of the leadership in the back line, for example, and distribution. So I think both of them are really good options, and they're less speculative than some of those extras, those win more type of players who are going to be inconsistent. So I think if you go with either of them, they're both really solid picks.
And I'd like to say to Ray, to the Razor, thank you so much for listening. I don't know how much advice you should be taking from me, a man who is ranked at least minimum 48,000 positions behind you. So make of that what you will. We hope we've given you some good food for thought. You're doing well. You're doing fantastic.
Well done, Real. Well done, Razor. You're a superstar, mate.
The next question comes from the nebulous Tim.
Hey, he's back. They're back.
I think he's going to be hard to get rid of.
Pronouns are important. I'm sorry, nebulous Tim.
Timception.
Apart from the flaming pile of garbage that is my mid, forward, defense, and flex lines, I'm pretty happy with my team. Wondering if we should be holding this week on trades and only trading if absolutely necessary for points on field. What are you three, because there's more than two people here, doing with your teams this week?
You know, nobody ever asks, how is Clarkie's team? Everybody only asks, what is Clarkie's team? And I don't know the answer to either. I think, Nebulous Tim, you've made a really good point, which is probably what we should be doing every week, which is you probably should only be trading if it is absolutely necessary for two reasons. One, economy. Two is injury. Right? Generally, let's take away we refer to the first couple rounds as correction trades, but I don't think of them as sort of everyday, kind of an everyday category. I think those are the two main reasons that we really trade before upgrade season, or however you want to talk about that. So if you have a situation where you don't need to expend a trade, you're comfortable that you have all the guys with pretty low break evens and you're going to make good money, you don't have any major injuries that you need to cover for the best 22 week, hold it. Hold fire. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But to answer his question, what are you doing with your team this week?
Pretty much following my own advice. I'll trade the people that I need to trade, which in this case is Nathan O'Driscoll, and I will hold the rest because I have all the rookies with negative. I don't have a single rookie apart from Finn O'Sullivan is the only rookie I have that has a positive break even. And there's nothing wrong with that. Save the trade.
You don't own Isaac Kako?
Oh, I forgot he exists. Yeah, I've got him, but he's playing Melbourne, so it's like a 90-point game for him.
Yeah, I know that Nathan O'Driscoll's out. I know that Elijah Hewitt is out. What I do with that money, I'm still deciding on. Probably bringing in Riley Bice. I miss him. I shouldn't say probably. Definitely bring in Riley Bice. And what I do with the second trade, completely undecided at this moment. Waiting for teams on Thursday night.
Yeah, I think Bice and Hall are definitely coming into my team. I definitely need to improve. Like Lucas Camprial is on my bench in the midfield, and I just don't have a lot of high hopes for him getting back into that Carlton team, unfortunately, with the way they're going. They have to win. The knives are being sharpened for Voss. The back's against the wall. What do you do in those circumstances? Do you bring back Lucas Campriali? No, you don't. Of course not, because this guy is not going to win you a game. He's not star factor enough for Voss. So, yeah, I think I'm going to trade out Lucas, and I know it sucks he hasn't made any money, but he seems to be a dead rook to me at this point. His brother might get in before he does. So I think Hall and nod Bice certainly is a play. And then the question for me becomes, am I ballsy enough or psycho enough or masochistic enough to try and trade in Nevitt again, potentially? Because I just think this guy is so good. He's a gun. He hardly played any game time against the Lions, coming on like midway through the last quarter, and still scored 20 points against the reigning premier. Obviously scored 82 against Freo, who's a really good side, and 58 against the Saints. So I think he's got a lot of money to make, and I'm not a big fan of picking, someone else like the Freo boy. Like Dudley, I'm not looking. I know he's only 99k, but I don't want to pick a small forward. If I've got someone there at 180k who is an on-baller that I know is good, I'm considering using a boost and then just absolutely rejuvenating my cash generation with all three of Bice, Nevitt, and Hall this week.
Next question comes from Daniel. Hey fellas, thinking about getting in a budget option in either Briggs or Will Ashcroft in the flex. Got the cash to trade higher, but want to know your thoughts. Need to get rid of O'Driscoll, Day, and Callahan. Hoping to get Jack Sinclair, Clay Hall, and one of either Briggs or Ashcroft or an Uber Primo. Cheers.
Clay Hall is good, yes, but Finn Callahan I also own Finn Callahan, and I really wanted to trade him out, but then I realized he's playing at Norwood Oval, and that changes everything, I think, because the ground is so small. It is smaller than my backyard, and my backyard's not big, okay? And you are almost guaranteed to have a contested possession or a tackle. Every time a game is played at Norwood Oval, the rucks and the inside mids just go bananas. And he's second banana in that CBA mix. Yes, he has a really high break even. I get that. But I want points on field more than anything. And I think he's going to give me a lot of points on field. So I think I'm holding Finn Callahan this week, crazily enough.
Yeah, Callahan's not high on my list of players I want to trade out. I think while those first two games are looking like spike games, I don't think he's too far away from getting back there and doing it consistently. I just think, even against West Coast, he didn't have a bad game. It's just early on in that game when the game was up for grabs, like before GWS pulled away, he was just turning the ball over, getting caught for holding the ball. He wasn't impacting at the right moments. And when the game was already out of reach, that's when he scored all his points. So he wasn't getting maximum impact out of his possessions. I think against St Kilda, who are a team on the rise, I think he's going to need to make his possessions count a lot more. And I think they're going to be worth a lot more when we're talking about impact. So I agree with you, Joe. I think he's in for a higher score, a better score.
Clark, he's just looking at us like you guys are dumb.
No, here's the thing. I understand and I agree. However, the idea of getting Sinclair, Clay Hall, and I'm confused about the Briggs, Ashcroft, or an Uber Premium. Like, always Uber Premium?
Always Uber Premium, yes.
Always Uber Premium. If you're going to bring in a guy that you're going to keep for the rest of the year, then it saves you one spot to upgrade later, right? And you're getting one of the key cash generators for this week. Sinclair looks great. Nothing wrong with that. So, I don't know, if Callahan has to fall on the sword for, say, they're picking up a Lockie Neal, right? Like, that makes sense to me, even though I completely agree with everything that you guys are saying. So I think that there's probably just maybe that slight bit of context missing from Daniel, but it's, you know me, I'm very powered to the people, right? Like, if it feels right for you and you're willing to commit to that as your team's journey long term, like, think about how this will impact you in the coming weeks, right? Keeping Finn Callahan now maybe sucks if he goes at 80, right? Maybe sucks if he goes a 60, but he could also go like you guys said, 100 plus. Clay Hall's going to generate you money if he's named, and Sinclair's going to make, he's a top 6 to 8 defender. It's the 2 injuries plus Callahan. So, I don't know. I think there's a pretty good argument either way that you want to go with this, Dan, but my biggest advice is to consider the long-term impact. And we talk about this a lot here on the Mailbag. Like, don't trade just for the now. You need to think about if you're trading a sideways for a Callahan, then you need to think about how that impacts your structure and how that impacts your trade plans down the line. Trading for an injury is easy enough because you go, well, that guy's not playing at all. I'm going from a 0 to 20, 40, 60, 100.
And also to do this trade, he's using another boost because he's mentioning 3 players out for 3 players in. I would also keep in mind how many boosts that has already been used. NOD and Will Day for just Sinclair and Clay Hall is also a very good trade. Is also a very good swap. You can save yourself a boost and hold on to Callahan because Callahan is not going to be too far different from a Briggs or an Ashcroft in theory.
Yeah,
so it could... So Sinclair, Clay Hall, excellent ins. NOD, Day have to go. Those are 2 forced trades and those are 2 great trade-ins. You could probably wait. A week and not use that extra boost, which you might need later in the season.
You could also find the intersection where Uber premium meets cheap price. And I'm looking at one Christian Petrarca, who certainly I think has upside on his current price, a break even of I think 125 off top of my head playing against the Bombers. And he spent a lot of time forward, so he's almost guaranteed to get DPP, and he's sub 500k. And we know that Christian Petrarca is capable of going 110, and he hasn't done that just yet. So he could also be an opportunity that you'd be keen to jump on if you want to keep holding on to some cash or looking for another cheaper upgrade in the coming weeks. Keep an eye on Christian Petrarca. If not this week, then next week.
Next question comes from Troy. Who do you like better as an upgrade option this week, Sheezel or Whitfield? Would you consider using a boost to upgrade Matt Roberts to get both?
I prefer Whitfield.
I prefer Whitfield as well.
I prefer Whitfield. I don't know if I would use a boost on Matt Roberts to get both.
You know what? I say I prefer Whitfield, but I think from the price capacity, maybe I do prefer Sheezel. I think Sheezel's upside for his current price is slightly better than paying up for Whitfield, depending on what's available, right? I think this is depending on circumstance and what's in your bank. Like, I got Whitfield when he was relatively cheaper, and he's scoring fantastically. He's got an excellent role. However, he is over 600k now, and Sheezel's 570 and trailing down. So 30k could probably be the difference between an upgrade, in the coming weeks or a downgrade in the coming weeks, to just sort of start stockpiling that a little bit. For scoring, I prefer Whitfield. For cash, I prefer Sheezel value.
Yeah. And hold Matt Roberts, Clarkey?
Depends on how many boosts you have. If you've already used 2, no. If you've used 1 or less, I'd probably say, yeah, could be worth it. Probably could be worth it.
If I knew Sheezel was going to keep this role, I'd say, yeah, certainly. But I'm pretty confident that he's not going to stay in the role. So there might be a week coming up where he might play more half forward, perhaps, because Finn O'Sullivan was out of the side last week due to illness. He's not going to stay ill forever. Finn O'Sullivan could come back, and where are they going to play him? Off half back. So, yeah, just too many question marks over where Sheezel is going to play for me.
Next question, last question that we have here, comes from Gav. Needing to trade Fraser and O'Driscoll this week, have over 100k in the bank, can move Fraser to any other top line defender, already have Clark, Wanganeen, Malera and Holmes, was thinking to Sheezel. Then with the other move, I can go to any player up to the price of 250k. who looks like a good pickup will be able to use as a bench spot, preferably to generate cash?
I think from pretty much what we were just talking, I would take Whitfield and Clay Hall.
Whitfield and Clay Hall, yeah. Yep.
Agreed.
Fits the brief. Any top line defender, I think it's pretty clear at the moment who the top line defenders are. So if you haven't got a Sinclair, but having Sinclair and Wanganeen Malira is kind of, I personally like to diversify. I don't know if you guys also enjoyed that. Dane Zorko, boo. But unfortunately, I do have to admit he is averaging quite highly. Bailey Dale's on a pretty hot run as well if you have a soft spot for the doggies. But Whitfield's probably my pick of the current top line defenders just because I like him. all said and done, I like him the most.
Fair enough. Yeah,
And-
Whitfield's up there for sure.
Yeah. I like Whitfield as well. So, yeah, Whitfield and Clay Hall. Excellent. Thanks for your question, Gav. Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone,
thanks,
for
Gav.
their
I hope that helps.
questions.
Sorry if we answered it too easily.
Everyone else gets a long answer, and Gav only gets a short one.
Yeah,
He
Gav really doesn't get the airtime that he deserves.
Hey, we're mentioning Gav's name more than anyone else's name, though, apart from, of course, Nebulous Tim. But Gav, you're up there, mate. All right, I love you. Shoot me, Gavin. You're in my heart, mate. We got you.
We have to mention Nebulous Tim multiple times because there are more Tims as part of Nebulous Tim. He's ever growing.
Keep a lookout for our traffic lights across our socials and on our website. Our traffic lights are a guide where we'll grade some players each week, and they will either be awarded a green, yellow, or red rating. Green indicates a good pick. Yellow is a watch or hold. Red is a trade or avoid. A player could earn their rating for several reasons, including but not limited to scoring potential, job security, price point, reliability, or injury status. It will be posted shortly after teams drop on a Thursday, with an update on Friday if needed once Sunday teams are confirmed. Last week, social media let me down. I queued up the post to go live. As soon as I looked at the team sheets, I said, yep, good, go live in about 15 minutes. I don't know what social media did, but nothing went live. In fact, I couldn't even find the queued post. So in like 3 years, you might get a traffic lights from last week. So midway through the Thursday night game, I posted the traffic lights, and it was the wrong version. It was the one with all the wrong prices, all the wrong blurbs, all the wrong colors, all everything. Well, not everything, but a lot of things were wrong because I picked up the wrong version in my little saved file, my little saved pictures file that I have. So we didn't end up posting it until Friday, and I'm sorry if that left anyone in the lurch, but you can blame social media. Not that I've turned 30 and suddenly can't actually use a technological device.
Fucking millennials. I blame the curse of Ron. This seems like the curse of Ron's work.
You're right. We didn't give him anyone to curse in that first midfield spot.
Listeners, the first midfield box of the traffic lights is still under guidance for we are scouring high and low in the spiritual, the religious, the occult realms to rid us of the curse of Ron. But I thought we would have been past it. But Damo's escapades with social media can only be attributed to one curse of Ron. And Ron, you better not be fucking listening. I told you about this. I told you. Don't. This isn't for you.
He didn't have that first midfield square to ruin. So, you know, the saying, idle hands are the devil's playground. He decided to kill us in another way. All right, vice captains. Thanks, guys.
Sorry, Dave. I love that. It was perfect. You know, you're right. The devil's hands are idle playthings. Vice captains, for me, I am putting the old vice captain on Maximum Gorn against a Sam Draper / Nick Bryan, I believe his name is, who could be made up. Joe might be messing with me.
He is very real.
He's very
Okay.
real.
Nick Bryan is very real, and he will be the cause and the source of Max Gorn's nightmares this week.
No, I think Max is already experiencing significant nightmares from the quality of the Melbourne team around him. Max, if you're listening, and we know you do, I love you so much. Please don't ever leave and just live forever in peak physical condition. You're the best. Max he had a 122 last week as well. He's kind of back to some good form, and I think Essendon probably prove midfield wise and ruck matchup wise give me the vibes of a good opportunity for Gorn to score quite well. Damo, who have you got?
I'll let the guest go next. Joe, who's your...
Us. He already spoiled it.
What did I say?
You said you had the VC on Sheezel this week.
I did. And the captaincy on Whitfield.
I listen.
You listen.
Clarkey, I heard him, but we didn't hear who his captain was.
And now he's given away the GOAT.
Yeah.
That's why we shouldn't have guests.
Whitfield, Whitfield, he's playing against St Kilda. He's gonna have to perform good for me, and he's in red hot form. Sheezel still playing off halfback. Hopefully, it's a free hit. If he's not, then at least I have a reliable captaincy in Whitfield to follow. I would have loved to have VC Tom De Koning this week. I thought he was going to go 190 plus this weekend against BJ Williams, but alas, Pittonet apparently might be playing this week. So yeah, can't go that way anymore. So now I have to go with Sheezel into Whitfield for me.
Perfectly cromulent. Damo, hit us with your captain, vice captain.
I'm going vice captain Lockie Neal and captain Andrew Brayshaw.
Nice.
Who have Brisbane playing? Oh, the Bulldogs at Norwood. Okay, yeah, that's a good pick. I like that. I also have the captain on Andy Brayshaw because they're playing Richmond, and I feel like, as Joe put it, it feels like a free hit for Andy Brayshaw.
I'm now wondering if I should remove my captain from Andy Brayshaw.
Hey, I had good captains last week. One of us had actually okay last week. I will actually say as well. This is one thing I'm pissed off about last week. The VC on Max Gorn. I've got the C on Lockie Whitfield. I should probably take 122. I was like, that's responsible super coaching, and we encourage all of our listeners to super coach responsibly. I was like, there's no guarantees that Whitfield's going to score more than 122. That's a good score. 148. 148. That he has the audacity right in my face. My favorite little defensive boy to come out with a 148. So there you go. Super coaching responsibly has its own foibles.
And that's it for this episode of the Footy Mailbag. Thanks, Joe. Tell us where we can find you.
Thank you, Damo. Thank you, Clarkey. Always a pleasure. Always much fun. An honor to be the first mid-season guest. Definitely have got big shoes for the follow-up guest to fill. No, I'm just kidding. You guys can find me at the Centre Bounce YouTube channel. That's for the Supercoach stuff. On Twitter at bounce_center, or you can hit me up at Chabby_Joe. And I'm also on the FanCast AFL YouTube channel. Just type in FanCast AFL on YouTube. That's going to be just a bunch of fun, our takes on the footy world. It's myself, Anna, who is an American, and she is completely unfiltered. So we always have some crazy backwards and forwards. And Steve-O, our good friend from SDS Supercoach, and you obviously know him very well, Damo, because you guys are doing your Throwback Thursdays together as well. So, yeah, it's some familiar faces and some good times.
I'd like to say as well, if you're not sure that you want to commit to a whole podcast, because I know sometimes people are a bit conservative, because it's a lot of time. We appreciate you listening. Go check out FanCast on TikTok. I always get to watch these little clips as like little previews before I go and watch the episode. It's a good way to just get a nice vertical slice, and you'll understand immediately that these are guys that you vibe with.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I find that I get most of FanCast through like my YouTube shorts. It'll just show up in my YouTube shorts, and that's how I consume most of it. But it's like awesome content.
Those shorts down or up?
I'm swimming with the shorts down, but I have hiked them back up, and they're okay now.
Woohoo!
Thanks, David.
I'm drowning fully clothed.
If you haven't given us a rating on your listening platform of choice, please do so. It helps new listeners find us. And you can find us at the Footy Mailbag on pretty much every social media there is. For myself, it's at DamoSC on Twitter, at an underscore after that for Instagram. Clarky is at QuantumJC on Twitter, and you can also check out his other podcast, The Falcon, at Falcon Footy Pod.
Yeah, that's a good show. I've done it a couple of times. It's a pretty good show. We pitched new marquee games based on national based on new holidays. So we have a new game that's specifically for Halloween, guys. That's it. You'll have to find out what they are in the episode, though. You gotta go listen.
And of course, we've got a website, thefootymailbag.net, where you can find our podcast feed, merch, written content, traffic lights, links to our social medias, and of course, the links to our question form. And remember, you can also send us a voicemail. What am I saying? A voice message now with the button that is added underneath the question form link. Thanks for listening. We'll talk next time.
Love you.
Hey guys.